I'm sitting here today with Emily Connolly, and today what we're doing is we're going over a basic tutorial on how to order colocation. So in the past, I've done a video that shows you effectively on how to order colocation when you're going into a data center. Now, to get started here, we have some key items to cover, and some of the key items that we're going to be covering today are going to be space, power, connectivity, setup pricing, monthly costs, and term. And all those have a giant effect on when you're ordering colocation from a data center. So once you've picked out an actual data center you wanted to go connect to or colocate with, the main component behind it is going to be what internet providers are located at the site. So what happens is that you might find a great price for space and power, but the data center might have a low amount of carriers there that might elevate the cost of the internet capacity that's available at the actual location. So when you're searching for the location, it's really good to get a good feel on who might be knowledgeable about internet at the site, rather than just going at it by yourself, because every data center in every city is going to be different depending on what the connectivity is, how many local carrier, metro fiber connections there are going to be, and long haul providers are all going to be there. So it breaks down pretty much to tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 carriers. So once you start figuring out about your connectivity there, you're also going to have cross-connecting. And cross-connecting is also another real hidden gem when you're actually going into a data center, because you might have the cost of cross-connecting being way elevated. It might end up costing $350 a month just for a simple fiber connection. While there could be other data centers that might be charging maybe $300 for a pack of 3 fiber circuits that might allow connections. So how does this really affect you? Well, let's say after you picked up the plan of space and power and you order colocation, space, power, and then you have your connectivity options, you have an elevated cost on top of that just to connect to that carrier. So what happens is you might pay, let's say, $1,000 for a 10 gigs of internet, and then you have to pay an additional $350. So you're looking at your connectivity costs being now $1,350 a month. This is something always to take into consideration. So sometimes you're going to find in some data centers that might offer bundled services, or they'll pretty much include a one bundled service that'll include space, power, connectivity, and some sort of cross connecting behind it. And those are the ones that are going to throw the best specials you're going to find in the industry. So I definitely recommend, when you're searching for a data center, see if and ask for a special package, because the data center itself might sell the internet for you as well. So therefore, you could take the entire connectivity and all the colocation, the power, and just wrap it up into one bill. And then that way you don't have to worry about the other providers. Now, this might not be good for everybody, because depending on the size of the institution or the network or the commercial provider, or actually who the business is, they might require multiple internet providers. So you're still going to have to kind of think about getting a base package and then ordering some sort of additional extra internet provider that might be there. Now, connectivity. Internet cross-connecting and bundle services, I did cover that. But your internet options, you have to know who the ISPs are and the network providers that are going to be on net. Try to focus and ask directly for whoever the salesperson is to say, hey, I'm interested in a data center in Kansas City, but please tell me who the internet providers are on net at that particular site. So a very important discussion is asking about the providers that are on net rather than providers that might pass by, because if it's a provider that passes by the data center and is not terminated at the site, you're going to have an elevated cost for that carrier to come in, rather a carrier that's existing at the site that might have a really spectacular rate for communications inside that data center. Network island versus carrier hotel. This is also a good understanding about the type of data center you're going to go into. Normally, the differences between a carrier hotel and a standard data center is that a carrier hotel is a location in a specific city or region that where all the telecom providers come in there. So it'll have all the local networks, that'll be metro fiber, long haul networks meeting there. It could have an internet exchange there. It could have layer 2 and layer 3 providers that are there that will give you that lower cost bandwidth, like your Hurricanes and your Cogents. Okay, so those are kind of different. Now, when you start looking at the network island, be very careful about picking out that data center that might only have 1 or 2 providers there that might be forced to purchase if you're in that data center. I've seen it many times before, and this is definitely something that you want to consider. They might give you a great introductory price on that cabinet and that power, but as soon as you get there, all of a sudden your internet and your transport costs are just through the roof. So avoid islands at all costs. Now, if you have a network and you are running an AS number, you have a BGP, you are running your own routers, I definitely recommend always finding a site with an internet exchange. Why are the benefits there? Is because you could actually pass off your traffic, and it'll actually enhance your traffic connectivity to your end users based upon if you are close to an internet exchange or you're directly peering with the internet exchanges. And that's where all the content providers sit, and that's where also all the eyeball networks sit. So what I mean by eyeball networks and content providers, eyeball networks can be regionalized networks like the Comcast or pretty much the Kentex or Windstreams, or they could be the Bluebird networks, they could be the Unity networks that will sit within a region, and therefore that content can sit close by onto that network. Now, a content provider can be an Amazon, could be a Google, could be an Akamai, could be a Netflix. So that's where all the material really sits at the edge of the internet when you're looking at a true network. And let's get moving on to the bundled services that you could find also as far as connectivity. In the industry offerings, you're going to find that some data centers will force you to purchase the internet. And the problem behind that is that it's going to be an elevated cost of the internet. Now, that's been a stereotypical kind of way of looking at this whole thing, but I have found that a lot of data centers in the past 10 years have moved away from this sort of mentality, sort of thinking. But what they did incur is a higher elevated cross-connect charge. So, and also another thing behind to consider in as far as your data centers is the data center neutral connectivity. So that means is that do they promote neutral connectivity to any carrier? Or do they say, I'm not going to allow you to connect to that specific carrier? They might be at a certain floor, or they might be in another data center on another floor, let's say in a telex environment or a digital real estate market or digital realty entity, excuse me. But those are things that way consider when you're also looking for the connectivity. Some are, and I was saying before, some data centers offer internet with colo. Should I consider those options? Absolutely. You're also going to need to have an understanding of letters of authorization, what are called LOA CFAs. Okay, and if you don't have an understanding about this sort of thing, I would definitely recommend reaching out to somebody that has an understanding about this, because if you do order an internet circuit from another provider in a data center, you are going to be required of this to provide this to the data center in order to facilitate your cross connect. You know, Emily, here's a nice thing about this this PowerPoint that I created many years ago. I haven't seen it, so I'm kind of blindly going into this stuff, but I did a video on this a long time ago, so I do apologize on it. And it's helpful. It's actually geared more towards connectivity, I think, because the last ones that I had the power, and it also had space, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. So a couple other things that are really that you have to know about is that when you are ordering cross connects from the data center, you have to know what your media type is. So you're either going to have SC, LC, or LX. Normally the standard today, people are kind of going into LC, little Charlie. They're going to be the smaller fiber connectors that you see here. Okay, the SC connectors you're going to see are a little bit bigger. And that's going to be, kind of a little bit larger one, and I call them Sam Charlies. But those are going to be a bigger internet fiber. That's going to be a bigger fiber connection, and then you're going to have the ST connectors, which are going to be the twist-ons. Well, I've commonly found that you're not going to see a lot more SCs and STs anymore. You're going to be seeing more of LC because it just happens to hold a little bit more of a standardization. You're also going to see that a lot of the data centers are normally carrying only single mode fiber because it's just becoming more universal around the data center. Now you'll find some that'll still carry multi-mode fiber, but there are distance limitations with it. There are entities that are still.
All of those,
what else?
Are all of those options, the fiber types that you just talked about, are they all single mode?
No, that could be also multi-mode as well. So
they can also be multi-moded,
yes.
But right now they only data centers prefer the same. Okay. Understood.
Yeah. So what we're finding, right? What I've seen is that it didn't matter, but it's becoming more standardized with the carriers because of their SFP modules are carrying it. Now you will see instances where you'll need multi-mode, and that's normally for the basis of 100 gigabyte connections, 100 gigabit connections, maybe for a SAN. So they're using a lot of multi-mode with that too as well, because it happens to have a different core size for it and a better bend radius and a little bit more pliable. But at the end of the day, sticking with a common single mode fiber is definitely the way to go. Copper types, you're going to find Cat 6, Cat 6E. They're going to different standards now, but normally if you're going above 100 megabits, everybody's normally utilizing fiber because of just how the simplicity of deploying it as well. You also get copper basically for serial connections and lower bandwidth out of band management. So when you see OOB that's out of band management, normally needing if you need a backdoor to a router, or if you need a backdoor to a serial interface that'll connect to multiple devices, that's when you normally order a small bandwidth circuit from an entirely different redundant provider that'll be able to give you a backdoor into your network, so you have visibility in case there's an outage, in case there's some sort of DDoS attack. So tips when you're ordering your internet circuits is bundle your services in the beginning. Do not wait to do that after you sign your agreements, because at the end of the day, they're going to give you the best price in the beginning in order to get you as a customer. Okay. Understand your port size options and also understand your internet option discounts. So the more internet you do order, I would recommend sticking with 1 gig and 10 gig circuits, because of the simple fact that a 600 meg circuit might be costing more than a full gig of internet. Okay. And don't tell me why, but sometimes people are not really, when they're pricing out circuits, they're just going off of a line rate card and they're not understanding, hey, look, let's just give a 1 gig. Sometimes the carrier's offering monthly specials too. Sometimes the best way I've ordered in the past is to order like a gig or 2 gig commit on a 10 gig circuit. Okay, so that way you can play in a full 10 gigabit capacity, but maybe you're only using like a gig or 2 gigs of bandwidth for it. So therefore you don't have to buy for the whole 10 gig commit. But normally the providers won't tell you that. And those are kind of the secrets that I've learned in order to order and have that ability to burst at that size. Now, understanding the overages on there are that's another discussion, whether it's 95th percentile, but it's one of those things to where it depends on how many minutes per month you are bursting at that you will pay an overage on there. Sometimes cross-connect discounts, also you could find that where you're buying packs of cross-connects. And that's, in the past, I found that, ordering a 3-pack would be the equivalent of $100 per cross-connect instead of buying that one cross-connect for maybe $150 to $200 a month. So think about that. Think about the future when you are ordering it. Do you need more carriers after you go into it? Because after you negotiated your contract and you went into it, you're going to find that it's going to be a lot more difficult to try to drive more discounts. Are there IX connectivity discounts too? So if you're running an AS number, if you're setting up a new market, sometimes there's a new internet exchange within the region that doesn't have all the participants available, that they're just trying to bring more networks onto it or more content providers on there, and they might not even charge anything. So you might have to pay either a cross connect sometimes on the the data center, but sometimes the data center is promoting that internet exchange and giving out a certain amount of bandwidth to that internet exchange that you could offload without having to add another carrier to your network. So after you get to those certain points, how do I negotiate the internet? Well, if you don't know how to negotiate the internet, I would say, listen, reach out to one of us. We definitely, that's where we come in. We could help you negotiate your internet and then take a look at what you're spending today and see how we can help you save. But if you are looking to do that yourself, I would say, hey, always ask for the internet upgrade when adding new services. So anytime you add new services to your existing colocation and you're going to order more cabinets or more power, ask about the internet upgrade option. Say, hey, look, if I bought another power circuit, can you give me a better deal on some internet that I might need to add here? Be aware of who's on net and make sure that you're always up to date. Let's say if you ordered Cola and you've been in the data center 3 years ago, there is the possibility that they might have added 5 more carriers to that data center. So always be aware of asking your data center provider about who are the new companies that have installed gear there, who's on net, who upgraded recently that might be throwing the latest special. Consider a network aggregator. Sometimes there's these network aggregators like Megaport or just there's a lot of them in the industry that might pool together a whole bunch of providers at one and offer you one circuit directly to them, and then you could pick from the connectivity options that they have there, whether it could be SDN, whether it could be internet, whether it could be transport to another data center. Always consider a network aggregator. Try to get 3 quotes if possible, and ask for a better price even after you have been given a final quote and you're ready to close. Always go in and ask for a better price at the end of the day. Well, this is pretty much my introduction here to kind of when you're going into a data center and you're trying to pick up your best options for internet, transport, or just connectivity in general, and you're just trying to find your best options at a data center. Okay, so Emily, I'm going to go ahead and close there. I thought it was going in one direction, then it went into a different direction, but that's all right.